Moves that were made in free agency yesterday. We'll play some fill in the blanks. Some names that you know. I don't know how big these moves are. RC, Joey Bosa to the Bills. That means what?
They're replacing one aging rusher with a less aging rusher. I don't necessarily know if this move moves them closer to winning a championship than finding someone on the outside who could be younger, who they could pair with Rousseau and have him be available each and every week. We know that Joey Bosa has been battling injuries. Early on in his career, he was one of the best rushers in football. I don't believe that this helps Sean McDermott's team win a championship in the AFC.
All right, another aging star, Dominique. DeAndre Hopkins signs in Baltimore yesterday. So D-Hop to the Ravens means what?
He gonna eat a lot of crab cakes? I don't know. I think DeAndre Hopkins, maybe Zay Flowers gets the veteran leadership that will help him take it to the next level. But I think DeAndre Hopkins is not quite the player that we remember that his name would suggest. So I think his addition there is probably going to be a lot more about leadership and than production. And I think that's a good thing for DeAndre Hopkins.
Maybe coaching kind of?
I think he's going to play. He's going to make plays, but I don't imagine he's not a number one at this point by any stretch. Obviously, and we saw with Kansas City, it didn't seem to make a huge impact with the exception of that one game.
All right, then let's get to the quarterback move that intrigued me for a number of reasons yesterday, Graziano. Daniel Jones to Indianapolis means what?
Already the last chance in Indianapolis for Anthony Richardson. Like, he's going to have to beat out Daniel Jones to keep his starting job. And if he can't do it, then I think the Colts go into, year 3 of Anthony Richardson thinking that he's probably not their guy long term. So Daniel Jones is there to push Anthony Richardson to play in case Anthony Richardson can't. And if Richardson can't beat him out, then he's not living up to his number 4 overall pick billing for the Colts.
All right, so Jones is the latest domino to fall in the quarterback carousel. You see all these dominoes here.
That's well done.
So you see the ones that are still standing. We put Kirk Cousins up there because you never know what's going to wind up happening with him. Russell Wilson and, of course, Aaron Rodgers. So here's my theorem. We thought Daniel Jones would stay in Minnesota. We think Minnesota wanted to keep Daniel Jones.
Tried.
And I think Daniel Jones recognized maybe that he has a better chance to be the starting quarterback in Indy than he did in Minnesota, where they've got last year's number 10 overall pick, J.J. McCarthy. Right. So I have been trying to sell you all week long, Graziano, on a scenario that the reason it is taking what feels like a very long time for Aaron Rodgers to go to Pittsburgh is because he has another option he's hoping will come to him. And maybe that move was one that sends us in that direction.
Because if there's even a 1% chance that it could be Minnesota, I think Aaron Rodgers wants to leave that door open. And look, if you're the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold left and Daniel Jones left and J.J. McCarthy coming off an injury, you're still not sure when he's going to be ready and you don't want to rush him, you're trying to bring in a veteran quarterback. Now, Aaron Rodgers is a whole different animal, but once Daniel Jones signs with the Colts, the discussion in Minneapolis' building has to be, do we try this? Like, what are our options? Lay out every single option that we possibly have. So that name comes up in those conversations. I don't think it's going to happen, but...
it'd be irresponsible not to consider it.
But I think it'd also be irresponsible to do it.
You beat me to my punchline. Slow down. I've done this before. I know what I'm doing here, man.
My bad.
It would also be irresponsible for them to bring Aaron Rodgers in that building with a young quarterback that is going to make mistakes. It'd be really tough, assuming that J.J. McCarthy's going to be their starter. It's going to be really tough for him to have a rocky start and have Aaron Rodgers sitting behind him, despite the fact that Aaron Rodgers wasn't great last season. He's still Aaron damn Rodgers.
If Minnesota were to do this, and I still think it's unlikely that they do, it would represent a blowing up of the J.J. McCarthy plan.
Situation.
Like, I don't think you don't bring it in. Thank you. We've been doing this so long, we finished each other's sentences. No, I think that's the whole thing, because Aaron Rodgers would be coming in there to play. So again, I don't think in the end they do it, but as of last night, it was like it's not a 0% chance.
So let me preface my thought by asking a question. Think back to a year ago today. How long ago does that seem like? All right? A year has become a lifetime in the society in which we live, right? In the world in which we live today, a year is forever. So I think you take everything in life year to year, certainly in sports. Right. This coming year, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, and you were pretty close, you went into the last game of the NFL regular season with a win away from being the number 1 seed in the NFC. This coming year, do you have a better chance of winning the championship with Aaron Rodgers or J.J. McCarthy as your quarterback?
Well, I think the first thing is, if you bring Aaron Rodgers into your building, Aaron Rodgers now becomes the most important person in your building to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's
right.
true. Regardless of the building.
Regardless of the building.
Right.
And so now, if you're Kevin O'Connell, is that something you want to deal with when you know J.J. McCarthy is going to be your future? Not because you've watched him play, not because you believe in him, but because you picked him in the top 10. And when you pick him in the top 10, at some point you're saying, J.J. McCarthy, you're going to get an opportunity to be the franchise quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. Do you blow that plan up for the Aaron Rodgers we saw last year? Right. And I listened to Dan talk early on in the meeting, and I love the way that he prefaced it. Aaron Rodgers didn't kill that team because he was a cancer in the locker room.
The Jets,
Aaron Rodgers killed the New York Jets because he couldn't play. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers and believe to yourself that he could be a reclamation project, right, that Kevin O'Connell can say to himself, you saw what I did with Sam Darnold for a year, watch what I do with Aaron Rodgers, you know what I'd say? Well, do that same thing with J.J. McCarthy, the one we drafted top 10 and you believed in enough to say that he probably would have started last year. I don't believe you make this move. You don't get to make a move year to year when you draft a quarterback in the top 10 the year before.
What do you think?
I mean, I think it would be representing giving up on J.J. McCarthy, which is a hard thing to do. And I know that you would say that they would bring him in and say that Aaron Rodgers is the backup or whatever, and it's just one year.
No, he wouldn't be the backup. You'd be bringing in Rodgers to play. You take your shot for a year. How many quarterbacks have sat for 2 years? Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers sat for longer than that. Quarterbacks sit sometimes.
Come on, Greeny. We recognize that that's an entirely different situation. The cupboard is bare. They have one quarterback there. For them to go out and get a quarterback, go get Jacoby Brissett. That says to J.J. McCarthy,
you're the starter. You the guy.
Right. Go get
the other part is too, though. Like everybody brings up, like we love to bring up the fact that Jordan Love sat and that Aaron Rodgers sat. Hall of Famers in the prime of their careers when these guys was drafted, which is why those guys were pissed off that you drafted them because they knew at that point they were still the guy.
If bringing in Daniel Jones to compete with Anthony Richardson suggests that Anthony Richardson might be on the hot seat, I think bringing Aaron Rodgers suggests to J.J. McCarthy that maybe we don't want you.
And the other thing to consider is Minnesota has built their plan around the idea of we have a quarterback on a rookie contract who's going to play at some point soon. They signed Justin Jefferson to the biggest wide receiver deal. If you look at their free agent activity last year and this year, they are dishing out big money. If Aaron Rodgers were to go to Minnesota, I think he would have to accept a lot less money than what Pittsburgh or the Giants is offering him. Maybe he would. At this point in his career, maybe money's not that big a deal to him.
It's high risk. Like, I get your point, Greeny, is you think that maybe Aaron Rodgers right now increases their potential winning the Super Bowl this year, but it completely demolishes.
And then listen. I don't know. On that note, if you truly feel, and maybe you feel like this, Greeny, maybe they feel like this in Minnesota. If you truly feel you can go win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers and you can't with J.J. McCarthy, then you do it. But how long are we going to kick the J.J. McCarthy plan down the road? Because now with Sam Darnold, you had a decision to make in the offseason. Is Sam worth bringing back? You have the conversation and not. If Aaron...
Sau đó mình sẽ móc những mũi đơn này. Mình sẽ móc những mũi đơn vào đây. Mọi người móc